Warning! What you're about to hear isn't sanitized. It isn't polished for mainstream approval, and it sure as hell isn't what CNN wants pumping through your car speakers. This is raw talk for real Americans, with a healthy dose of sarcasm, dark humor, and a couple of conspiracy theories thrown in for good measure. If you can't handle that, you might want to switch back to NPR and their government-funded lullabies. But if you're still with us, buckle in. Let's go.
Last night we sat here and warned you it was coming. Midnight hit, the clock struck 12, and boom, the government went dark. Well, at least dark in the sense of official functions, because don't worry, they'll still find a way to waste your money. But for now, hundreds of thousands of federal workers are waking up without paychecks. TSA lines are already stretching longer than Brian's last MAGA rally, and the media is drooling over this like a cat at a canary convention. This is Shutdown Fallout Day 1, and tonight we're cutting through the noise. All right, time to bring in the crew, because if Congress can shut down the government, we can at least fire up the mics. First up, Brian, the man who treats a government shutdown like it's MAGA Mardi Gras. He's got the red hat on tight, the fire hotter than DC tempers, and he's already planning the parade route for when the swamp dries up. Then there's Rachel. She's our voice of balance, the one who reminds us that politics isn't a WWE cage match. She's here to keep us grounded, even if it means pointing out that while Brian's cheering and Daniel's scheming, real people are the ones caught in the middle of this mess. Now, Daniel. The guy could turn a missing stapler in a congressional office into a grand conspiracy involving Bilderberg bankers, 3 ex-presidents, and the price of eggs. If there's a shutdown, you better believe he's already got a map on his wall connecting it to some shadowy cabal. And rounding out the crew, Skylar. She's the progressive thorn in our conservative side. Always quick to remind us about healthcare, the environment, and the people left behind while politicians fight over scraps. She'll take this shutdown story and make it about the folks Washington always forgets. And then there's me, Artie. I've been a strong-minded conservative voice for over 3 decades. Not a Trump cheerleader like Brian, not a centrist referee like Rachel, not a conspiracy sleuth like Daniel, and definitely not a green crusader like Skylar. I'm the guy who's seen shutdowns come and go, and I'm here to call it like it is. So buckle up, because this crew doesn't hold back. Before we dive in, tonight's episode is brought to you by the Caleb Rourke Thriller series. My books are the only shutdown you actually want, because once you crack open the Covenant Protocol or the Prophet Directive, good luck getting anything else done. And just wait until Black Echo Rising hits shelves. Check them out on Amazon and support the fight against mediocrity in storytelling. And of course, don't forget to grab your Data and Dissonance coffee. We've got 3 blends to fit your mood during this shutdown. Light roast for when you're still trying to understand the mess. Medium roast for when you're grinding through TSA lines unpaid. And dark roast for when you realize Congress doesn't care if your mortgage is due. All roasted right here in the USA. Grab a bag and stay caffeinated through the chaos. All right, crew, shutdown's real now. It's not a threat, it's not a countdown. It's here. Midnight hit and Uncle Sam went dark, and day 1 has already been full of finger-pointing, furloughs, and fear-mongering. So let's break this thing wide open. Brian, I'll start with you, because I already see you grinning like Pelosi just lost her liquor cabinet. Is this shutdown MAGA strength or political stupidity?
Strength, Artie. Pure strength. This is the first time in decades where Republicans didn't roll over and let Democrats write checks their grandkids couldn't cash. The media wants you to think the world stops because a couple bureaucrats got sent home. Good riddance. TSA still works, the military still works, the lights are still on. What doesn't work? Half the bloated agencies that shouldn't exist anyway. MAGA voters see this not as chaos, but as accountability. The swamp has been feeding itself for too long, and shutting the door on their buffet line is long overdue.
Accountability, huh? You make it sound like Congress is on a diet plan. Though judging by Jerry Nadler, I'd say they're all still sneaking Twinkies in the back room. Rachel, you're up. Strength or stupidity?
It's dysfunction, plain and simple. Independents don't celebrate shutdowns. They endure them. Workers lose pay, contracts freeze, veterans see benefits delayed. And for what? So politicians can score points on TV? Look, I understand the need for fiscal responsibility, but shutdowns don't fix anything. They just show the American people that our leaders would rather hold their breath and stomp their feet than do the hard work of governing. Independents don't see strength here. They see more proof that neither party deserves trust.
Strong words. Daniel, what about you? I know you've got a theory that shutdowns aren't mistakes, but moves on a chessboard.
Exactly, Artie. People think shutdowns are accidents. They're not. They're pressure points. You create disruption, you move markets, you stir fear, and then you see who profits. Hedge funds love this. Global rivals love this. The permanent political class loves this because they get to point fingers while consolidating more power. So is it strength or stupidity? Neither. It's a tactic, one that makes the public weaker and the powerful stronger.
Leave it to Daniel to turn a budget fight into a Bond movie. Skylar, you've been shaking your head since Brian opened his mouth. Where do you land on this?
Stupidity, Artie, absolute stupidity. Working families don't care about grand strategies or who gets the better soundbite on Fox or CNN. They care about paychecks, about childcare subsidies, about healthcare coverage that can get disrupted when funding halts. This isn't about draining swamps, it's about politicians gambling with real lives. And every time the people who pay the highest price are those with the least cushion to survive it. That's not strength, that's cruelty dressed up as politics.
All right, so we've got Brian calling it strength, Rachel calling it dysfunction, Daniel calling it a tactic, and Skylar calling it cruelty. Sounds like a Washington buffet line. Something for everyone, and it all leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Now let's talk blame, because if there's one thing DC loves more than wasting your money, it's pointing fingers. Brian, the media says this is all on Trump. Fair or fake?
Fake is a Kamala Harris laugh track, Artie. The president stood his ground on spending cuts, and that's his job. Congress had months to do their work and instead played political chicken. Now the media wants to pin it all on Trump? No way. The blame sits squarely with the Democrats who refuse to compromise, and with the rhinos who act more like Pelosi's interns than conservative leaders.
Pelosi's interns? That's a scary thought. I imagine the orientation is just her teaching them how to shotgun vodka. Rachel, does Trump own this shutdown, or does Congress share the blame?
They all own it, Artie. Voters aren't stupid. They see through the blame game. Trump sets the tone, yes, but Congress holds the purse strings. Both parties chose to escalate rather than negotiate, and now Americans are paying the price. Independents don't care whose soundbite wins. They care about leadership that doesn't exist.
Leadership doesn't exist in DC? That's like saying water doesn't exist in the desert. Technically true, but don't tell the mirage. Daniel, who do you say is really to blame?
Neither Trump nor Congress are the true culprits, Artie. They're actors reading scripts handed to them by donors and lobbyists. The shutdown isn't their fight. It's theater to distract from who actually benefits. The financial class and political elite want chaos because chaos funnels money and power their way. The politicians just play their roles.
Actors on a stage. So what you're saying is we're all paying tickets to watch the worst play ever written. Skylar, what about you?
This is Trump's shutdown, Artie. He demanded cuts that hit vulnerable people hardest, and he knew Democrats wouldn't cave to that. He pushed it to the brink on purpose. To pretend he's not responsible is rewriting reality. Yes, Congress is dysfunctional, but Trump is the one holding the veto pen and cheering on this mess. The buck stops at the top.
So to recap, Brian says blame the Democrats, Rachel says blame everyone, Daniel says blame the shadow bosses, and Skylar says blame Trump. If this were a group project in college, nobody would get credit, and the professor would just quit teaching. Final round. Where does this go if the shutdown isn't fixed fast? Brian, what's the next chapter?
It's simple, Artie. The Democrats will cave. The longer this drags out, the more they look like spoiled kids protecting their pet programs instead of protecting the people. Trump holds the line, the media screams, and eventually Americans realize we can live without half these agencies anyway. The shutdown exposes what's essential and what's just swamp gravy.
Swamp gravy. Sounds like what they serve in the Capitol cafeteria. Rachel, your prediction?
If it drags out, independents will get angrier, not more loyal to either side. People will start looking for leadership outside the parties, candidates who can actually govern without blowing up the whole system every few years. Drag this out long enough, and you're not just dealing with economic fallout, you're fueling political realignment.
Political realignment? So what you're saying is, independents are about to swipe left on both parties. Daniel, what's your call?
If it drags out, the markets wobble, foreign adversaries test us, and new laws get quietly written while everyone's distracted. Watch the fine print in these shutdown deals. The longer it lasts, the more backroom trades get slipped in. This isn't about when it ends, but about what changes forever when it does.
And that, folks, is why Daniel can't watch Netflix without assuming Stranger Things is a CIA documentary. Skylar, close us out. What happens if this doesn't end soon?
Real people break, Artie. Families go weeks without paychecks. Communities lose services. Kids miss out on programs they rely on. The longer this drags on, the more pain is pushed onto those who already struggle. Politicians walk away fine. Regular Americans are the ones who carry the weight. That's the next chapter. Suffering that didn't have to happen.
So there it is. Brian says Democrats will fold. Rachel says voters will revolt. Daniel says watch the fine print. And Skylar says the people suffer. In other words, the only guarantee in Washington is that the politicians will come out just fine while the rest of us fight over scraps. All right, crew, we've chewed on this shutdown from every angle. The strength, the stupidity, the blame game, and what's next if Congress keeps playing chicken with the American people. Now let's slow it down, take a breath, and give each of you space to leave the audience with your closing words. Brian, I'll start with you.
Artie, my final thought is simple. Government shutdowns aren't the end of the world. They're proof that government isn't the world. For too long, we've been told that if Washington closes its doors, the whole country falls apart. But here we are. The sun came up, the flag is still flying, and Americans are still going to work, feeding their families and living their lives. That's strength, not weakness. MAGA voters see this shutdown as a chance to expose the waste and force leaders to finally act responsibly. If it hurts the swamp, good. If it hurts freeloaders who built their lives off taxpayer dollars, even better. The movement isn't scared of shutdowns. We're scared of what happens when nobody has the guts to stand their ground.
Strong as always, Brian. Rachel, let's hear your final word.
My final thought is this. Shutdowns don't hurt politicians. They hurt people. Leaders go on TV and argue over who's winning. But families go weeks without paychecks. Veterans wait on benefits. And small businesses lose contracts they counted on. Independents see that and know both sides are failing. We need accountability, yes, but accountability doesn't come from shutting the system down. It comes from fixing it. And until we get leaders who care more about governing than grandstanding, we'll be right back here again, watching another shutdown play out while Americans suffer. That's not strength. That's dysfunction dressed up as leadership.
Sharp, measured, and a little painful. That's Rachel for you. Daniel, your closing thought?
Shutdowns aren't the disease, Artie. They're the symptom. The disease is control. Who has it, who wants it, and who profits from it. Every shutdown, every standoff, every crisis is a manufactured moment that benefits elites while the people fight each other. Look closely. While we argue over furloughs and funding, lobbyists are reshaping the laws in the shadows. Shutdowns are tools, not accidents, and they're used to remind Americans how fragile the system is. So they cling tighter to whoever promises order. If you want to see who's really winning this shutdown, don't look at DC. Look at Wall Street. Look at global powers testing our weakness. The shutdown isn't about Congress failing. It's about the people being played.
And that's Daniel, turning the lights off in the room and reminding us there's always a bigger plan. Skylar, your final thoughts?
My final thought is this. Shutdowns are cruelty in disguise. They're not budget tools, they're weapons used against working families, service workers, and people who don't have the privilege of waiting out political games. When Washington shuts down, it's the janitor at the federal building who misses a paycheck, not the senator who caused it. It's the mom who relies on nutrition programs, not the lobbyist who still gets paid. We can dress it up as strategy, but let's call it what it is: indifference to the suffering of everyday people. And until we start electing leaders who put people before power, shutdowns will keep being used as bargaining chips in a game most Americans never signed up to play.
And here's mine. I've been conservative for over 3 decades, and I've lived through my share of shutdowns. I've seen Republicans and Democrats trade blame like kids trading baseball cards, and I've seen the people get left holding the bag every time. Shutdowns don't fix Washington, they expose it. They show us just how broken, bloated, and detached our leaders have become. They show us that DC is more interested in winning headlines than winning trust. And they show us that every time there's a standoff, the only ones who suffer are the people who still believe this government works for them. Here's the truth. Shutdowns will come and go, but unless we change the culture of Washington, nothing changes. My challenge to you is simple. Don't get numb to this. Don't let politicians convince you it's normal. Demand better, expect more, and remember. Speak truth, stir thought.